Hi, Colton. Thanks for joining us here at Oracle AI World. How's the conference going so far?
It's been a lot of fun getting here, getting to see so many people, running some events. So.
Before we get into all that, how did you get here, right, in the solution engineering space? And tell us a little bit about you.
I work on the solution engineering or the pre-sales side of Oracle on the EPM products. I've been presenting on EPM for the last 6 years.
When you are in a client situation with a demo and you're showing them the product, what aspects of it, or when is it when that light bulb often goes off for the prospect?
It can be a lot of different things. So for some prospects, it's simpler things like going in and entering in planning values and seeing how they can see the planning value at one entity rolling up to the total company level. So sometimes it's something small like that, but other times it's the reporting side of what they're seeing, and you're telling me now that I'm not having to do the process the way I've always done it and the way it's always been. But thanks to the change in technology, now we can do this 10 times faster or 20 times faster.
Right, so it can be speed, it could be having more time now to play with their kids on the weekends, it could be that light bulb that says, all right, now I don't have to spend as much time gathering the data, I can spend more time on the decision making, right?
Yes.
And the reporting and analysis piece you touched on, so there's many different areas that the EPM suite offers, visualization capabilities, reporting capabilities. Tell us how you help customers decide the right mix for them. It's often audience, it's often different tools. How do they navigate these options that are available within the product?
Yeah, there's a lot of different options available from the reporting side. I think the story that I really like to tell around this is that it kind of starts off in Excel. In accounting and finance, I like to say that Excel is kind of like water. It's something it's like a fish being in water, and Excel like the back of your hand, that this number at this legal entity with this account is $3 million, and that makes sense to you. But when you start getting out into the business, or you start talking to anyone else about, oh, hey, come see my spreadsheet and come see this value on my spreadsheet, they're like, what? So I always like to start off with Excel. I'm like, hey, this makes a lot of sense to us, but the second you tell your wife about this, the second you tell anyone outside of accounting or finance about this, they're like, what's going on here? So that's where it starts to be okay, do we use dashboards and visualize things and see a picture of what's going on? Do we have PowerPoint packages where we're communicating about the story behind the data? Or do we have a Word document we're putting together? Or do we use formatted reports? And now there's so much that's changed with those formatted reports over the last few years. Things like commentary, or things like AI, and now even summarization of what you're putting in for commentary. So there's a lot of different aspects. And I really like to kind of paint the whole picture for things. And then it comes down to what exactly are you looking to do?
What do you think, looking at a customer's journey over time, has helped people adopt different ways of, we're never going to be able to take Excel out of their hands, but like you said, use different tools to make the process either easier or add more context. What helps them get across the line, and change the way they're doing things?
So the funny thing is, I was just with a customer last week, and they told me Excel is a dirty word at the organization. And that's because of the way everyone uses Excel. Excel is the best personal productivity, or I want to have a spreadsheet and I want to model out something this way. It's the best at doing that. But the second you try to say okay, now Excel is going to be my database, that's where Excel just isn't built to do that. And people are struggling. They're playing in the Excel Olympics at the end of the day. They're trying to take 15 spreadsheets and tie it all together. Or if you try to do a what if scenario, you're modeling all that out. So I think that's kind of the picture of hey, you're on the right path using Excel, but you're not using Excel for what it's meant to do. So that's where a lot of times I'll show Smart View and show how you can start to use Excel in the way you know and love, but you can kind of move out the stuff that you don't want to do in there.
Right.
But I'll say change management aspect, that's the hardest part of what's going on in EPM. whether you're trying to adopt something new like driver-based planning or adopt working in a system. Like that's what I found most of the customers I'm talking to. People are resistant to change. People like doing things the way they do. So would you want to talk a little bit about what you guys do at EPMI with change management in your implementations?
That's a good question. We see a lot of the same challenges with customers. Oftentimes what helps them is taking baby steps. Start with low-hanging fruit. So don't necessarily revamp every single process, but let's just look at OpEx, for example, and let's try if we can implement a driver-based model for something basic, starting small, and then when they see the power of the tool, they can advance eventually to predictive cash forecasting and some of the more complex areas, but just start with your P&L, right? And I think that helps them because when they see success, then they can visualize other areas that they could actually leverage some of the leading practices built into the product. So that's been helpful, is starting small and then growing from there.
Do I use it to start like predicting my OpEx? Do I use it to start streamlining the variance analysis process for a specific division? And I think that's where you're saying, let's start somewhere small, like, hey, let's plan out drivers for OpEx and start to see if we can get some wins there. I think those are some of the things, like the AI features are there. They're very easy to turn on and start using, but it's going to be that organizational process that drives all of those changes.
Absolutely, and I think one of the consistent themes we've heard as well, like you're saying, the customers are driving this change and organizations are asking for it, but they don't know how to begin, right? And so I think with the features embedded in the product, I'm sure you demo this all the time, it's nice to be able to show them how seamlessly they can just take advantage of what's already there, right? So as you're demoing the product, what excites you the most? Are you mentioned a lot about reporting, planning, but what areas of growth in the product really get you out of bed and excited to demo, every day?
Like almost every organization I work with struggles with, okay, we've got our variance analysis at the end of the month. We're going into SmartView. We have comments for actual versus plan, actual versus forecast. And then we're emailing out that spreadsheet up to our division leader and then to corporate. And you end up with like 400 spreadsheets for the month and you can't figure out like, oh, well, is this variance because we overspent last month or underspent last month?
Right. And
so that change was pretty big there. And now, like with the generative AI in the tool, it can tell you where the variances lie just from a report. And then it can even summarize like the comments where you're explaining things. So I think it's that nice like human and the machine working together there where you can use Gen AI to tell you where to look. You can provide those explanations behind it, and you can kind of marry the two to take something that is taking 2-3 days at a lot of organizations and allow you to actually focus on the analysis.
Yeah, and I think being able to have the time and ability to focus on the analysis, the right tools, it all comes together. But the what-if scenario analysis and having a packet of 400, spreadsheets, the version control, and being able to manage the risk around that with the product is also very key. And so talk a little bit about the process itself, because I think it's a little bit of a new concept to folks who did not have the tool in the past to be able to manage the approvals or the sections that people are working on for a budget book, right? Having that integrity of the data and then also the transparency back to the source. So talk a little bit about the narrative process and how you've seen it benefit clients and how that can be a bit of a game changer for them.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll say with that overall narrative process, like just about every company I've been working with has like that monthly operations review in finance. And everyone's just sweating it out, getting that package put together. They're spending so much time on actually gathering the data and getting it into the right format and copying and pasting it into their PowerPoint packages today. And they're not really having time at the end of the day to do the analysis or to get off at 5 o'clock or to play with their kids on the weekends. So what's really helpful about that is now we're taking some automation into that process and making it a template. Oh, now I'm going to come in, I'm going to review what the preliminary package looks like. And now instead of doing all that manual work to get to that package and to get to that information, Now you can spend more time on, okay, how am I going to format this? What story am I going to tell behind the data here?
Right.
And then you've got that integrity through the process of, if I've got a question about a number, I was with a customer a few weeks ago and they had to leave the meeting to go figure out if the $100,000 value in the expense account was actually the right number. So having that integrity, having the ability to get back to that source data and trusting that your numbers are actually what they're supposed to be is such a game changer for a lot of our organizations.
So when customers now they have the tools they need, the confidence in the data that was missing, what is the journey that you see or the roadmap that they embark on? So do they often start with, like we were saying, P&L, balance sheet, and then they go to cash flow and then forecasting, or maybe they're getting into other areas of departmental planning? What is that journey that you typically see? I know every customer is different, but what's been the most common, journey for a planning customer?
You've got to find a balance of something. So for a lot of customers, they really want to start with just that profit and loss and balance sheet forecasting. But you've got to start finding a balance between, okay, are we going to implement a tool to just do what we're doing today? Or are we going to actually start to advance things, and what that actual right balance is for a customer?
Right. And oftentimes that could just be the next step of workforce planning, right? Or if projects doesn't make sense, they start with, because workforce is often 60% of their operating expense. So it depends on the priorities as well, and the nature of the business. So that's what we've seen, is that they'll typically go there next, and then maybe they'll do projects or another area that makes sense for their team. And the other piece, when you see customers that have offline processes, so how do you advise them to give it a fresh look and take advantage of what's in the tool?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is not just saying, okay, we've got our spreadsheets today, let's put those in the system and do exactly the same thing we're doing. A lot of the organizations I've worked with, when they move to a driver-based planning model, things get better. Their forecasts start taking less time. They're starting to get more accurate. Now they're starting to understand, instead of just, okay, what was that variance? It's like, okay, now what's the price variance? What's the volume variance? What's the mix variance? And understanding what actions they can actually take to influence the organization.
Right, right. And I think that's the holy grail, is to actually be able to make the process better, like you were talking about, but pausing and not just taking what we're doing today and putting it against technology, right? Technology alone is not going to solve anything. So talk to me about these hands-on sessions. You said you've broken some sort of record by doing at least 30 around the country. What is that? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I've been involved in various hands-on events for roughly the last 4 years. So walking people through Fusion ERP and how EPM plays into that process here. Then about 2 years ago, I got an ask from my director to come up with, okay, let's do a hands-on workshop. Let's come up with something, and instead of just, hey, let's do exactly what your processes are, let's focus on what's transformational and what's exciting there. So we piloted these out. It was just at first the old hands-on experience of, here is your packet, come in, follow along to your packet.
Yeah.
And what we really found is a lot of people were at different speeds. Some people were done with the session in 10 minutes, and other people were still 30 minutes in, just completing the part then. So we've evolved it, we've transformed it to where it's kind of an experience, where we're at the front of the room delivering this. We're teaching people how to build reports. We're teaching people how to build dashboards. We're performing consolidations and reconciliations. We're teaching them how they can use predictive planning and driver-based planning and scenario analysis easily within the tool.
So it sounds like it's a blend between them being in the system, but also you presenting how they can leverage a lot of the features in the tool. Is that right? So it's a combination of two?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us how a customer qualifies for something like this. How do we get them there?
Yeah, so with these hands-on events, these are things we've been running throughout North America for now the last 2 years. Like I mentioned, I must have done probably about 30 of these different events, but it's so fun to meet existing customers as well as prospective customers looking at moving to EPM. And like I mentioned, with like building a dashboard or building a report, it's just such a joy on everyone's face where they realize, like, what does it take me to build a dashboard today? Or what does it take to build a formatted report? Or am I going to IT to get this today?
Yeah.
To seeing that, wow, I just did that in 30 minutes on a tool that I may have touched before.
Right.
I may have not even existed. And customers can register for these events as we put them out. And we're often trying to advertise them through LinkedIn, through our different sales reps, and through our partners.
Excellent. Well, I'm definitely going to be talking to our customers about them, so they'll be looking out for you in Houston, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. When you're in person, that make it so much different. Like if you were to do one of these hands-on events virtually, you'd never get people coming up to you after asking you about, okay, what did I see today? Like, how do I actually do this? And I think that's the nice thing, is it helps you understand where people are at with finance, with accounting. And it can be kind of a big dichotomy when you've got all the AI in the tool, all of the things that you can use to automate things, the way you can start to understand that story behind your data so much faster, versus where some people are at today, where they're still in spreadsheets for a lot of their processes.
Right, and I think it can be intimidating. While there's a lot of great content out online, experimenting with some of these features, in the beginning it might seem overwhelming, but then the way you guide them through it, and then you can also talk through their use cases, I'm sure they learn from each other as much as they're learning from you and how their peers are doing things in the system. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things we've been sharing a lot at these hands-on events afterwards is a lot of the tutorials Oracle just puts out for free. A lot of people don't know about these, but these are things like administrators can go into their test environments. We'll provide them with an LCM and that documentation. And they can actually go home and practice, like, for instance, with AI, we've got an entire section on just configuring AI where they can stand up insights or the new machine learning predictions or the standard predictions within the tool. And they can at least test this out in a test environment. And then they can start to understand, okay, how do I now bring this to my test environment myself? How do I pilot this out to different business units? And how do we start actually piloting and utilizing these features?
What are some of the questions or concerns they have before they start to adopt some of these newer features?
Time's limited. We've only got this many resources at our organization. How can I get started, and how can I get a quick win without doing something large like an ERP transformation or completely overhauling your back office systems?
Exactly. I think you mentioned getting started. That's one of the biggest questions. Some of the things that we hear also is, trust around the data, which we talked about, and also with innovation, how that the evolution of the tool, how do they use the people in their team with the technology that they're deploying? How are roles changing in the organization as well? So I think that's been a very interesting discussion. What are your thoughts on how AI is evolving the skills that we have in our teams and how we deploy them?
Now we pretty much all have like a super intelligent assistant sitting with us at all times. There's things that have just been incredibly difficult to learn in the past that now we have our like super intelligent assistant telling us exactly how to do things. So I'll say it's gonna really increase the knowledge. It's gonna increase the skills that we're gonna have available to us. So I'll say that's gonna be a huge change for a lot of our customers, a lot of our organizations. And then I'd say what Oracle is doing really nicely about things is Oracle is doing a lot of that plumbing for us. They're not making customers go out and go into Python and learn how to code out machine learning models or anything like that. They're just showing you, okay, here's AI, here's some options you can select around it, and then you can get up and start running and working with it.
If you look forward, what gets you out of bed? Is it the face-to-face customer meetings you talked about? Is it exploring new capabilities of the tool? What excites you for the future going forward now?
Yeah, so for the future, it is these face-to-face customer meetings. It's the ability to connect with people on like the human aspect and kind of get beyond just like being here to talk about accounting or finance or whatever the process is at the end of the day. And then it's really that future of finance. Like I'll say what's driven me a lot is like being on that cutting edge of finance, like getting to see AI and generative AI as it's being developed, as we're seeing what changes are happening. And being out here at AI World, we've seen some very exciting things. Like, I don't know if you've seen like the planning agent or like the reconciliation agent, where it's going to be beyond, okay, I'm going into the system to getting something. And one day it's just going to be, okay, pop up your phone and speak into it and say, tell me about my sales for these product lines and identify anything that looks weird to me. And then it's going to be able to bring that up for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And we got to thank you for, joining us today on the podcast, but also helping our customers as well. So thank you again, Colton.
Well, thank you, Minie.